Hey, welcome back, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about things I want to see change inside this game, inside Throne and Liberty. Specifically, alliances, guilds, and loot. The reason why I feel like we should have this conversation is because the tax delivery event is literally right around the corner. And after the tax delivery event, we're probably going to have more major content following after. And it's very important for us to talk about these things because right now in the current state of the game, I don't see this game lasting very long. It's very unhealthy and unbalanced. That being said, let's talk about why. So, loot, as many of you know, is very unattainable, or at least it feels very unobtainable. It feels unrealistic towards anyone with a life and stuff like that to play this game. And before someone starts badgering with casual cry about it, all that stuff, yada yada, it's an MMO. Nonsense. There's plenty of MMOs that do loot justice. And I've played plenty of games in which grinding is okay. Like, I'm fine with grinding. I'm fine with having a set grind. But here's the thing, right? If this game was dictated strictly by RNG and everyone had the same amount levels of RNG, I wouldn't complain nearly as much as I do now. Because of the fact that, hey, it's just RNG. Like, it's just how MMOs are, right? Like, you can't stop that. It's fair. But the problem is because of the way the loot system works. So it's not really RNG as so long as the top guilds can control the loot system. You put way too much power in top guilds' hands, in the top alliances. What do I mean by that? So major big guilds, if they're controlling your server, you'll probably notice that these players are usually the ones you always see inside your server getting drops, purple items nonstop. A lot of the problems you see persisting inside the game that's changing things, like for example, gatekeeping certain bosses, like Junoboat, for as a great example. Yes, I know NC Games is working on a fix for this. They're going to start putting portals outside peace zones, but think about that for a second. This goes into how much control players actually have inside the game. Um, so this game's loot system is based on a contribution system. Players that get shafted the most right now are healers and tanks. If you're a healer and you or a tank, you most likely aren't going to get a drop at all because like it doesn't matter how much healing you're throwing out there. For some odd reason, the game still just favors damage, and damage is easier to do than healing because the contribution there is significantly higher. You can only heal so many players, right? And if most players aren't taking that much damage or have a lot of distances and stuff like that as is, right, you're not really doing much for them. Whereas uh, damage dealer, all I have to do is continuously smack the ever living heck out of a boss nonstop, right? And I'm hitting him for like 30k x2, so I'm hitting him from like 60k a hit kind of thing. So I'm taking out a massive chunk of his HP. So as a DPS, I get rewarded more often than someone not. Unless you decide to just keep buffing me, right? But why does this affect guilds? So strategies that big guilds do is they will hog portals like crazy. And if you don't realize how much big guilds hoard, like they hoard portals. Like think about it like this. Most active guilds or top guilds have about almost 60 players, 50 to 60 players online at once, right? So if you think about that guild, plus their alliances that they're tied up with, that also have like another 50, 60. You're looking at 100 to 120 players all entering one portal. And then you think your small guild, or if you're not in a guild, you're a single body, you're going in, and it goes to the guild with the highest contribution to the boss, right? And this isn't talking about PvP. People might be like, well, no, render, it's for everyone. But I mean, you don't have gear. You're not going to compete. Their contribution is insane. They have the highest gear. They're occupying the portals. And on top of that, they're applying each other with the most buffs. And you're competing against them. It's like you're racing against people who already have gear. Your chances of getting loot is so significantly low. I've been playing this game since the second day of its global release. And the amount of people who I've been helping out and trying to get them loot, they have never once seen a drop. Still have yet to see a drop. I, thankfully, have a little bit of loot, but I still struggle to get loot because I'm still competing against top guilds. So that's kind of rough. Uh, and why is this important though? It's important because PvP is the end game for this game, and it's kind of hard to balance out PvP if other players can't really catch up inside gear, because it's this game isn't even a skill-based game. It really isn't. Like, most players at the top aren't even actually good when it comes to fighting in PvP. They just have massive gear score. And the gear score is important. And if you don't believe me, by all means, if you think your skill can carry you in a fight, drop down to green gear, green or blue gear, and then go against someone a fully traded purple gear, especially with the in-game gear, their full builds and all that stuff like that, and go try to fight them. Realistically, you will not win. You're going to get one tap. You won't do damage. Either you're going to miss, or you're going to do low numbers. You can stagger them all you want, stun them nonstop, but with the PvP meta, everyone runs a stun of some kind. So you can only stun them for so long until eventually they stun you and then one hit you, right? Your damage will never ever succeed their damage. You'll never be able to break past their defenses. It doesn't matter if you have 3 of you jumping them. I got jumped by noobs multiple times, right? And like, my gear score at the time of me getting jumped when I'm talking about some of this stuff was like, what, 2,900 or something like that on my PvP build. And with 2,900, like, I'm mopping the floors with people who have like a gear score of around, like, 2,100 or like 16, like, not 1,600, like about like 1,800, 1,900. Like, some people are like 2,000 gear score, some people like 1,900. Now some players are now up to like the 2,000, like, 500, 600 range. But think about that. I'm at 3,200 now. And I'm even stronger than I ever was before. So that should just tell you how difficult it is for some of these players to actually PvP me. Now imagine going against 70 players all kitted out like that. And then that 70 players transforms to 140 players, which then transforms to like 210 players against you, because of how you can have an alliance of 3, all occupying and dominating events, pushing you out of events so they can stay on top, getting all the rewards from events, then gatekeeping you from bosses, then gatekeeping you from contribution, then PvP bosses, they just getting all of the loot, and they control the market. Not only are they controlling the market, but we have the tax delivery event coming, so they control Rift Stones, Boon Stones, which also gives them passive buffs and abilities and defenses, right? That just make it really hard for any smaller guild or anyone not inside a guild to ever compete. So you're just automatically significantly gate kept out of all of the content, and you will never achieve your goal. You don't feel like you're doing anything. There's not enough content inside the game that feels fun to do, because it's just constant repetitive event after event. You just have to wait for an event that you actually want to do. Majority of the events are all the exact same, so players get bored of that. Get bored of that really quickly. Fishing kind of sucks. Like, there's no like fishing quests or anything like that for you to do to try to get loot that way. Other than now, like, I guess you can try to fish for like the smallest chance of you to get some Arch Boss weekly stuff, but good luck with that, right? It's just hard, because as we get more content going forward into the game, the top guilds are always going to remain on top, and they're always going to control that thing. We should have a weird dynamic where content goes in, like, goes back and forth, teeter-tottering. How I propose that we start nerfing some of these bigger guilds and changing the loot system, make it to where if you are a player, it doesn't matter if you're in a guild or not in a guild, as long as you meet a threshold of contribution, right? So how we can get the selection chest as of right now, you have equal footing as everyone else who all participated there. Everyone's the exact same, no matter how much damage they're doing, right? To get a drop, right? Everyone, we're all at the same rate. So if you contributed enough healing, if you contributed enough damage, if you contributed enough tanking, all that stuff, and you got your participation box, right, that popped up in your icon, you have the same exact chance to actually get a physical drop from the boss, no matter what. It's not controlled by your contribution. It's not controlled by your gear score. You're on equal footing across the board there. That's one way we should change the loot system, make it equal and fair across the board. RNG is just RNG, right? It's not RNG when it's player controlled. That's not RNG. It's RNG when it's systemated, when it's system controlled, not systemated, a system controlled. Okay, so make it to where your gear score, how much damage you're doing, none of that matters. It's just strictly RNG. Conflict bosses, we can leave it to how it is. Conflict bosses is like a whole nother thing. That's like your guild fight another guild. That's kind of cool. So if you want to leave conflict bosses like how it is, that's awesome. But again, alliances need to be tweaked down a bit. I feel like alliances shouldn't be a thing, but I understand alliances is a huge concept. So some changes I like to see to alliances is one, make an alliance chat. So I don't have to make an alliance Discord. Make an actual alliance chat. Limit how many players can actually form teams and parties. And then also, if you are in an alliance, right, there should be pros and cons to forming alliances with members. So the pros and cons to forming alliances, I think, should be if you form an alliance, you can only control one Riftstone. If you have a Riftstone, you can't control a Boonstone. If you control a Boonstone, you can't control a Riftstone, right? But you can partner with people who have a Riftstone or a Boonstone, who have the whatever thing that you're missing. And the passive buffs from the Riftstone and from the Boonstone is shared across the entire alliance. You can only have one alliance, so not two, but one. And I think this would really balance out the game, because now you have now it gives alliances purposes. So now we actually share, passes with each other, but also we're not controlling too many things. Like we don't have an alliance member controlling a Riftstone and a Boonstone, and then they control a Riftstone and a Boonstone. Now you can only control one Boonstone, in an alliance. You can only control one Riftstone in an alliance. Think of it like PvP. When you're doing like team PvP, you can only have one type of weapon on a team. It's kind of like that. You can only have one world passive buff going on at all times, and it will be shared amongst your guild and your alliance. Then when we do events like the tax delivery event, for example, or do like open world large scale war, say like for the throne, for like Vienta Village or Stoneguard Castle. Another pro. The pro is you can get help. If your guild members aren't online, you need extra help to help you defend your base, whatever the case may be, right? Your alliance can help you out with that. But if your alliance helps, they have to get a cut of that pie. So the minimum amount I would say for negotiable terms should be a 70-30 split. So the alliance members can get 30%. So this way it helps other people rotate in and out to what they think might be better for them. And you can negotiate up to like 50% or 20%. Like if you want to make your guild get less and give the other guild like more lucent, right? So you can keep them happy and keep them formed with you and stuff like that. You could negotiate terms. I feel like that would be really good instead of just the top guild always getting all of the loot. And then you might say, oh, well, then what's that? Would that keep them in power? I mean, yes and no at the same time, because most people suck at negotiating. But also, even if you do decide to do like 50-50 lucent splits, most people might not feel like it's worth it. They might want to try to hoard it for themselves. Right now, currently as it stands, like these top guilds really are horrified at each other. A lot of these players do not fight each other at all and refuse to have like any kind of like conflict, which is why the top three guilds instantly just automatically alliance. The top three guilds form an alliance with each other, and that's it. And they never break their alliance. They just hold on to it and hold everything in power because they're getting all of the loot. All of the loot. And it doesn't matter how toxic the guild leader is, right? People disband, they'll join a different guild, and they'll still come back and form the same alliance just with a new leader. But they'll all be the same members with the top gear because they know how important the gear system is. So you would think that just because you were toxic inside the game, right, and you were stealing people's loot as guild leader, you wouldn't be able to, like, no one would accept you back into the guild. That would be a logical thing. But no, people don't care. They just want to change leadership, so they'll leave the guild, form a whole new guild, right, or join a different guild that serves them better. And then the other person's like, all right, I'll just join that alliance, and I have 3,600 gear scores, so you want me on your team. And then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we want them still, but we're just not going to give you any kind of lead or position. At least that's how my server is, right? Like, it's the same people who have the highest gear operating these guilds because, again, you need them for loot. Without them, you're not going to do anything. So it's just a weird dynamic that I feel needs to be addressed inside the game. I might be ranting and rambling on too much, and I apologize. We had a better talk about this on stream, but it's just one of those things where I feel like, one, rehaul guilds. Make it to where guild leaders don't control loot. Two, I could just store items into my guild chest for my members, so items I don't need. If I'm out in the world farming, I can put weapons and stuff like that in the guild storage and just give it to people. And I know people might like auction house. Listen, I'm trading this to my guild member, right? I would rather have my guild member get looted up than care about the auction house. And I know the auction house is very important, but that also dictates people getting loot. And if people aren't getting loot, right, loot drops, no one's gonna get the auction house. If it's only the whales or people who are top gear, guild control having the loot and they're charging things like $40,000, and that's a hyperbole. Most people are charging like around 10 grand. You know, that's more realistic. Not realistic in terms of like you should go out and buy it, but more realistic in terms of like the actual values that you'll see in the marketplace. Um, it's like that's ridiculous. No one should have that much control over gear inside of a game. I shouldn't have to pay you more than a mortgage or anything like that for a fucking video game. Like, people barely like to spend $70 on buying a fully completed game, but you want them to spend over $100, mind you, on just one item inside of a game that benefits you in no way, shape, or form, other than the fact that now you're just gonna get even more ahead of me, right? So that's the issue I have inside Throne and Liberty, and I really do hope NC Games looks at this and just tweak it. Like, just make it to where, again, if you're gonna form alliances, make an alliance chat one thing so where alliance members can talk to each other a little bit better. Also, limit what alliances can control all overall together. Rehaul the guild system. Make guilds, add more pros and cons to alliances, but make guild leaders have less control over members' loot. Also allow guild members to... Sorry, one second, my voice is cracking. My bad about that. Sorry, my voice started cracking like really bad. Make it to where guild members at the end of the day can share loot with each other, such as put it inside like their guild chest storage, and you can have it still if they want to set a price and auction it off to each other, they can, right? So if you want to put the item inside the chest and say, hey, I'm willing to give this to you guys, but I still want to get paid 500 lucent. I think that would be fine. That way NC Games is still making money some way, shape, or form, right? And you're putting the item inside your guild chest. Because why should my world drop go straight to the guild when it could just go to my inventory and I can choose where I want to put it if you still want the auction? It's like the same concept in my mind, at least. So just make it to where it follows the same rules. As long as it doesn't upgrade it, trade it, or anything like that, you can put it inside the guild storage. So if I get an item and I want to share it with my members, I can do that. So that way they're not getting burnt out. They can still get loot. I can go out and I can go farm other things and actually be more helpful as a guild leader. Another thing is when it comes to loot, again, make it to where it's equal across the board for everyone to get, so no one's getting gate kept out, so that we have better chances at fighting larger guilds and eventually being able to actually overtake the throne. By also reducing how many alliances is formed, we also reduce just the overall amount of BS that happens inside the game. I think that would also be helpful too. BS being getting jumped like during an event by like 200 freaking members. I feel like guild events should be strictly guild events. There should be no alliance allowed during a guild event, right? You should, like, alliances should only come into play if it's like major war events, like conflicts. Like, I say, how I propose an alliance is, say you want to attack another enemy's Riftstone or Boonstone, so you need to form a team, right? You want to form a team, say like you need a team of 30. 30 players can go attack. You can ask for alliance help if you don't have 30 members online. So that the alliance members can act as an extra body for you, as replacement bodies to help you go and pick this war against this this guild, or help you defend a spot. And the reason why your alliance would want to help you defend your Riftstone or Boonstone is mainly because of the fact that, hey, they're also getting that buff and benefit now, right? So as long as you are in control of that Riftstone, they can now they get they get that buff too. So they would want to obviously keep that buff. So they would want to support you. So I feel like that would make sense for alliances to at least keep control of that. But instead of them controlling more than one Riftstone, more than one Boonstone, and all this stuff like that, making it unfair across the board with like a Riftstone and a Boonstone, a Riftstone and a Boonstone. You know what I'm saying? You see like the top guilds just everywhere, and they have like these crazy buffs. Now it's kind of like, hey man, they got that Boonstone. If we don't help them out, we're gonna lose control of that. Like we're gonna lose that buff. We need to get that, and or we're gonna have to like break our alliance and form a new one, right? With someone else because they lost control of it. So it's like who's in power is constantly shifting, and it won't be the exact same people always in power every time we get the event. I'm probably yapping, and I'm sorry about the yap, but I'm trying to formulate my thoughts. I don't have a script, so it was just one of those things where I just wanted to get on and actually do a recording and just talk about this stuff. Let me know down in the comment sections what you think, if you agree, if you disagree with the changes that I proposed. If I didn't hit everything, I apologize. I can probably do like another updated video, which would probably be shorter, maybe, going further in details about things. I just didn't have a script tonight. I just really wanted to get this video out here and just talk about some of the frustrations players that I know are having and things that I think I agree with, because again, I want this game to do great, but this game realistically will not last long. It's already losing a lot of interest already, and the only people who seem to be enjoying this game are people in the top guilds. And that's only because, again, they have better chances at getting loot than anyone else inside the game because they control the loot. They have a monopoly on all the content inside the game. And the way NC Games has everything balanced right now, it is just not good. Right? The next event, tax delivery event, again, they already put it in favor to ranged people. So there's that. So if you're a ranged DPS, you're living your best life. And that's something now I kind of want to say for like another video, is just talking about metas. I just kind of want metas to change a little bit too. I feel like it was a cool concept, seeing the fact that you can use whatever weapon combination you want, but obviously the way the game's map design is, the way the contribution system, all that stuff works, it's like everyone's converting to range DPS, like staff wand or staff bow, I should say. And with that becoming like the new meta, it's kind of just like, what's the point of me being a brawler? Like, I want to be up in your face and melee stuff, but it seems as if the game wants to favor that sort of playstyle, and that's not healthy. So it's kind of lame. I chose to be a brawler type because I find that more fun, and I hope they can somehow figure that out and make it to where we can enjoy playing our playstyles respectively. But if everyone's just going to start converting over to staff bow, it's kind of like, what's the point of tank role? What's the point of healing role? Like, what's the point of any of those roles, right? Players just gonna quit. They don't want to play staff bow. Staff bow might be fun to you or whoever's using it, and that's cool. But I want to have fun on my build, and I want to still feel important when my build. And I know people who are strictly healers feel the same way. I know people who are strictly tanks want to feel the same way. We got to figure it out. So hopefully NC Games, you see this video, and you take that into consideration, and we can get some proper changes happening. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. I'll catch you in the next one.